This is the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
Nice strike! Oh, better than nice!
Let's get ready to rumble!
Salam and welcome back to the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri. I'm your host. Shout out to everyone who's tuned in on the Instagram Live, Pulse 95 Radio, at Omar Al-Duri as well. We love you guys, and we're talking about a couple of really interesting things today on the Halftime Show. Remember, every Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, 3 to 4. This kind of topic, I think, comes up a lot, especially on the show, depending on the guests we have, depending on what's happening in the current world of sports and also in life. And mental fitness and mental health is something we've discussed a lot on the show. Now, some people have brought that to the attention of others, talking about how important it is to be able to speak out for men and women and to be able to relay your feelings, the sense of empathy, sense of gratitude. Now, what's mental fitness? If those are thinking probably like, I've never heard of mental fitness. Omar, tell me what's mental fitness. Well, hey, listen, you came to the right place, because mental fitness is defined as a state of well-being and having a positive sense of how we feel, think, and act. Now, today we know that 1 in 2 people will be diagnosed with a mental illness by the time they reach age 40. The concept has always emerged has kind of emerged in the last couple of years, and it's really important that we kind of speak about it and use the platform to speak about it, because nowadays a lot of people are not sure if it's right to feel a certain way when it comes down to these things. Physical fitness gets plenty of attention, and for good reason, but a healthy body can prevent conditions such as heart disease and diabetes. We've spoken about that, and help you maintain independence as of age. Now, mental fitness and the capacity to be able to mentally challenge yourself, mentally calm yourself, mentally register certain feelings so you can actually stay on tact. And now I mean that because sometimes we react to a circumstance. You know, when COVID first hit, everyone was in panic. Also, the unprecedented times, not knowing when it's going to be done. That was another thing. You know, we just didn't know when we're going to return to normality, as we call it, routine, whether it's work, whether it was something to do with, you know, going to the gym, going to see friends and family. All these things have been put on hold, but has also allowed us to kind of, let's say, recap, reflect, and also re-energize what we have spent a lot of our time doing. And I get asked that question quite a bit, you know, when it comes down to that. What keeps the brain, you know, working? What keeps the brain, you know, busy? And a lot of the times it's our own thoughts and it's the way we handle things. So I'm looking at that and thinking, you know, mental fitness means keeping your brain and emotional health in tip-top shape. It doesn't mean training for brain Olympics or anything like that. It's more about just being able to deal with matters, deal with situations, and be mindful, because we, you know, in the society now, we often look at someone and judge them subconsciously without even noticing, and that's something I'm going to be talking about later on in the show. But on that tip, a lot of athletes have come out and spoken about the importance of it. Now, when you take away the sport that people love and play and do for a living, it's not just the athlete that reacts to that, it's also the fans. And not having football around, or basketball, or cricket, or rugby, or any sport that you're into, mixed martial arts, for a while, has caused a lot of people to almost close back into their shell and try and look forward to something, because that stems off a lot of banter, a lot of talk between your friends and your family, and jokes and a lot of teasing, depending on whichever team you support. And that's why, you know, we're talking about mental fitness today, and we're talking about mental health and the importance it has on us as human beings, us as athletes, as coaches, and just society in general. We weren't able to talk about it for a while because it wasn't almost embedded in our DNA growing up, because it was that kind of old school mentality to be able to, you know, just man up and just deal with it. But now people are being a lot more aware of every person has their own story, every story has its own journey, and that's something that, you know, on the Halftime Show we like to bring, not just in the sports world, but also in life. And so today's first segment is dedicated to everyone who is facing challenges, who is facing tough times in the world today, whether you've lost a loved one, whether you've lost your job, whatever it is you're doing, it is okay. And inshallah, everything will be fine. Just make sure that, you know, those who still have the jobs are grateful, and those who still are capable of working and doing things that they love, still being able to spend time with loved ones. These are the messages of today. And that's why I thought I'd dedicate my first segment to mental health and mental fitness and always trying to see how we can get out of it. You know, sometimes it's very easy to point out a problem, but not easy to figure out a solution. And that's something that I urge a lot of people to try and help. Empathize with what people are going through. If someone responds to you or reacts a certain way, don't take that personally, because we are in unprecedented times and it is challenging times for a lot of people. So that's my message to you today. Coming up next, though, Barcelona. Barcelona fans, you're going to want to tune into this after the break, because I'm going to be talking about your team. And not only am I talking about your team, my cousin brought this up to me the other day and said, you know what, with this whole revolution at Barcelona, with all the players that are turning 30 or in their 30s right now, could this be the new AC Milan? If you don't know what I'm talking about, stay tuned on the only place to be at 3, the halftime show on Pulse 95. It sure is that time. It's the halftime show with Omar Al-Duri. I am your host, covering everything sport, international, local. You know what makes my heart smile? When you have someone tuned in from Uzbekistan. You know what I mean? Like, that's when you hear like Saudi, Egypt, London. I love everyone that tunes in, but when you hear someone from Uzbekistan, shout out to Abu Abdullah, who's tuned in and loving the tunes on Instagram Live at Omar Al-Duri and Pulse 95 Radio. And if you are tuning in as well on the YouTube, which is new this week, we're launching the live stream. You can see me now live in the studio talking to you as we speak. And we got a wicked topic. Shout out to AJ as well, and Murad, who's tuned in as usual. Murad, one of the number ones, day ones as we call it. Now, I've got a topic for you guys. And for those Barcelona fans, don't hate me. Wait till I finish. Here we go. Are Barcelona the new AC Milan? Now, before we go into Barcelona, the new cats are going to probably be thinking, what are you talking about? AC Milan, they're rubbish. Right, AC Milan might not be what they were in the past, but let me break down to you what they were. Now, the new AC Milan, the name AC Milan, stirs up feelings of nostalgia and aura for those who watched them in their heyday. And I'm talking back in the day. Some of you weren't even born back then. But what is it about AC Milan that fans still remember them fondly despite their wretched forms and troubles of late? When you think about great clubs, you think about legacy. You think about what makes a team great. You think about dominance. And you think about legends. And I got to tell you, the AC Milan 1989, that's how far I'm going to take you guys now. The AC Milan 1989 were a team of dreams. And I'll tell you why. To uncover the brilliance of one of the greatest sides ever, let us turn the clock back to 1988. AC Milan had won their first Scudetto in 9 years. A mere 2 years ago, they had been rescued from bankruptcy. Now put that together with 1988 and then 2 years ago, 2018, bankruptcy. That is crazy. And when you think about who they were rescued by, anyone knows Silvio Berlusconi, who had audaciously purchased the Dutch duo Marco van Basten and Frank Rijkaard in 1987. Now, with Gullit arriving in 1988, see, all these players now are starting to make sense. They were part of one team. He also put the helm on the infamous Arrigo Sacchi, a coach with no top-level playing or coaching history. That adds more drama to the plate. The next year, powered by the new European champion Dutch duo, they would win the first European Cup in 20 years and defend their title in 1990. For 27 years, until Real Madrid in 2017, no team had ever successfully defended their European Cup Champions League title. So those are the levels we're talking about when it comes down to AC Milan. Now, a World Soccer poll, I hate saying soccer, but it was a poll that I had to mention soccer, voted AC Milan as the greatest club side of all time. Now, Barcelona fans, this is your time to shine, or your 30 seconds while I give it to you. Barcelona, for a large period of time, were one of the, if not the best team on the planet. Now, since then, a lot of people may argue with that, and I will say to you, that now has been taken over by other teams. Shout out Liverpool. Just saying, Champions League winners, World Club Championship winners, and Premier League title winners. Liverpool are doing big things. But there's a trend I'm noticing here, and my cousin brought this to my attention. Shout out to Yassine, all the way from Egypt, tuned in. What makes a team great? If we look at the definition of great, we get two related aspects in that. Remarkable in magnitude, degree, or effectiveness. And the second one is markedly superior in character and quality. think of dominance. I'm going to tell you a starting lineup now of the AC Milan greats. You've got Gali in goal, Tassotti right back, Baresi and Costa in the middle, and Paolo Maldini left back. When I go across the four in the middle, you got Colombo, Rijkaard, Ancelotti, Donadoni, and up front you got Van Basten and Ruud Gullit. And that was the 1989 champions. Now Barcelona, your time is coming to an end, I'm afraid, because Barcelona now are facing, let's say, a recycle. And I say that because a lot of their players are in their 30s. A lot of their players are coming to an end in their career. And I think they've run out of excuses. I don't think we can start blaming managers. I think we can start looking at the board for who they bring in to fill a gap that doesn't make the final decision, if you catch my drift here. But what's dangerous about that? When you get a bad result as a Barcelona team, the coach is looked at. Get rid of him, he's useless, he doesn't make decisions. But who really looks after Barcelona? It's no question that Lionel Messi has such a huge pull on the board, on the team affairs, and on the dressing room. But should he be responsible for what's happened, or does it take a certain type of manager to be able to manage Barcelona? And this is where things get interesting. I'm talking about when you bring in a character, he brings in his ideas, his staff. But has that been able to happen? And why is it that a team of Barcelona's magnitude isn't capable of bringing in a top name? I've never heard Ancelotti linked with them. I've never heard, your big boys, linked with them. Your Klopps, why aren't they linked with them? We've seen Pep Guardiola, but he came from Barcelona, so that's a little bit different. But when we're looking at now, Barcelona, what are you going to do? It looks like there's about 6 to 7 players that need to be changed, and that's why I use the word recycle. Defense has been ignored since Carlos Puyol. The Busquets role has been wiped out now that people have exposed the fact over 100 meters, his distance cannot be covered further than that. So how close the other 2 players to him will make that formation, and then that's where it comes to question that no one's ever replaced Xavi Iniesta. How do you replace Xavi Iniesta? Then you look at the front 3 with Messi, Suarez, and it used to be Neymar. Griezmann got bought in, he spent all that money on him and he shoved him out on the wing, and now he's on the bench. Ansu Fati is a great prospect, but will he develop with all these big names around him without getting the playing time? All these factors now, and saying that, with defense being the highest measure, Koulibaly, Upamecano, Kante in the middle to be able to cover ground that Busquets cannot do anymore. Why aren't the obvious decisions being made for such a big club like Barcelona? And those are the questions I'm asking, because sooner or later, a 33-year-old Messi will retire. And we lost quite a bit of the competitiveness and the nature between Ronaldo and Messi when they were both in the same league. Ronaldo was very smart, went to Juventus, challenged himself in a different league, and cemented his legacy. Still doing it, by the way, at the age of 35, 2 years older than Messi. But will Messi last? And that's, again, throwing questions your way. Text us on 4215 Itasalat or slide into our DMs at Omar Al Duri or Pulse 95 Radio on the Instagram. And I'll tell you what, guys, we're also live on the YouTube live streaming now, which is really exciting because it's the first week. Hope you guys are having a blessed day. Let me know your thoughts. Are Barcelona the new AC Milan? And coming up next, I'm going to talk to you about aesthetics versus performance. So stay tuned on the only place to be at 3, the halftime show on Pulse 95. Yes, sir.
Nice strike! Oh, better than nice!
Oh, you beauty! What a hit, son! What a hit!
What a hit indeed. We are still talking to everyone on the Instagram live. Shout out to Sarah, Murad, Yassine, Hatem, Christian with some very interesting opinions on the last couple of segments. We've been talking about Barcelona, we've been talking about AC Milan, mental health, mental fitness. If you are just tuning in, remember you can catch the podcast on the halftime show with Omar Al Duri. You can catch it on SoundCloud, Spotify, and Rami, and also, what am I missing? Apple, of course. Sorry, Apple fans. You can catch us there. We've got a lot of really good guests on there with some great topics. And one of the topics I'm going to be mentioning today especially is aesthetics versus performance. Now, sometimes it has a big say on the way we view things, the way we talk to people, the way we sometimes judge. And I hate using that word, but it is something that's true. With the power of social media, with the power of marketing, especially online, the first thing we do nowadays instantly is check online. What are we looking at? Who are we looking for? if it's a coach, for example, the first thing that will come to mind is let's Instagram them. Let's check out and see who this person is and what gives them the credibility. And that's something I want to talk about today. I've mentioned this on the show before where I've said, what matters most? Aesthetics versus performance. And when it comes down to it, is it the way someone looks or is it the way they perform? And even that, how do you judge performance when you don't really know the person, you don't really see them in their element? They could be super fit and you would never know because they look bigger than your average, for example. So that's something that I'm talking about today. And it comes down to, also never really judging someone when you're looking at, an athlete or a player. Let's say Armand Traore at Wolves. He is built like a sprinter or someone that is, a wrestler or someone. Fantastic genetics, and apparently doesn't really go to the gym that much, which I don't really believe. But saying that, if this is the case, then how come he's built like that? But people have noticed him, not necessarily by his performance, but the way he's looked in the last year. He's been in the game for a very, very long time, yet we don't really embrace that. But now all of a sudden, with a couple of really good assists, the way Nuno De Santo Espirito has handled him, has managed him as a person, that's been very, very interesting as well, because it's shown, who the player is, who the athlete is, who the human is. But saying that, if he doesn't look that way, will we be giving him the credit? That's another thing. Then you look at the smaller type of players. Let's say your Santi Cazorlas, for example, who's in Villarreal, still doing at top level. You look at mixed martial artists. You look at them and you think, for example, Roy Country Nelson. I don't know if you guys know him. If you don't, Google him. He doesn't look like an athlete, but boy, can he fight. And not only can he fight, he's conditioned to fight. So he can go 5 rounds with you and still manage to out-wrestle you, fight you, out-grapple you. And that's what I'm talking about. How much is it really important to, when you study someone, when you look at someone, when you judge someone, when you even want to work with someone, how important is their presentation, the way they look, the way they carry themselves? Because you might find the genius in someone completely out of the scope. And that could be down to how we look at things. We look at players like Gianfranco Zola, if old school heads out there. Gianfranco Zola was one of the smallest players, but he played in the Premier League, which is arguably the toughest, physically demanding league out there. And he still managed to be a legend. So that tells you, in every sport, even basketball, you look at Iverson, you look at the smaller players, Steph Curry, okay, he's not that small, but you look at these players and you think, okay, they're not 7 foot, they're not the big players, but they can still play. So that's performance. And I want to get your opinion on this. So text us on 4215 at Salat Urdu, or slide into the DMs at Instagram on Omar Al-Duri or Pulse 95 Radio and let me know, when it comes down to aesthetics, when it comes down to performance, what stands out? And be honest, there's no wrong answer here. What does stand out? Because right now in the world we live in, it's often something we look at and we judge before we've even given a chance to see what they can really do. And I know there's a lot of people that are performers out there and probably shouting for that flag and saying performance definitely beats aesthetics, but also it's subconsciously the way we judge, how we look at people, how we see things. If it's a trainer, let's say you go into a gym and you get an option to train with someone, who are you going to look for? The one that looks the greatest? You're going to give a chance for someone to speak to you and break down the knowledge they've maybe invested in for the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Do they have to be a certain age? That's another question. See, now I'm starting to get into your brain a little bit. When you do go for a coach or you do go for a trainer, what is it that you look for? And be honest, tell me. I want to hear all about it. We've got one more segment coming up. And after that segment, I'm going to take all your comments in for the day and tell you the topic of the day as well. On the only place to be at 3, the Halftime Show on Pulse 95. It sure is that time. It's the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri. I'm your host, covering everything sport, international and local. Hey, listen, I'll tell you, it's been a great show. I've had some really cool comments and some very, very good questions. Got to give a shout out to a few people as well. Kareen, Yara, Yassine, SIY Pod, and everyone else who's tuning on the Instagram Live, Murad, Muhammad, and Hat. And thank you so much. I've had a couple of questions as well, so I'm going to try and get through them as soon as possible. Omar, what is your take on the greatest teams and what sides stand out? That's a good question. Okay, there's a couple of teams that I kind of put together when it comes to total football, and that comes down to philosophy, so I'll try and break it down as quick as possible. One of the teams is in the Inter Milan of the 60s. Herrera's Inter Milan of the 60s was fantastic in the way they moved the ball around and the way everyone kind of knew where they played, and also the efficiency, how they punished teams through organization. So that's that. Ajax's team, obviously Michel's Ajax team in the 70s and also in the 90s as well. Guardiola's Barcelona team in the 2000s, they were fantastic. But when it comes down to considering like the definition of greatness, I think a lot of people get lost in that because it kind of just gets washed up very quickly. At the time, you're the greatest team and then it just gets thrown out the window. But there are total teams, and I think it has to go down to the pioneers or the godfathers of the sport when it comes down to the Arrigo Sacchis of this world, the Johan Cruyffs, who evolved not just great teams but systems that could be passed over through generations. And that's why Pep Guardiola and co have been able to adapt to so many different things. And so I hope that answered your question regarding that. The other question I had was Barcelona or AC Milan at their pomp? Well, that's a very good question. Whew, you guys are throwing in those questions today. If we look at Barcelona of the mid-2000s, I think in the 6 years from 2005, 2006 to 2010, 2011, I think they reached and won 3 Champions League finals and 4 domestic titles, if I'm not mistaken. This is comparable to AC Milan. However, what I will say is Xavi himself, when being compared to that, there's a quote I pulled out. He said, "We are incredibly proud when they compare us with Sacchi's Milan." That was a side which made history in football. So that tells you something else as well, you know, when you have those people talking about it. But there is a comment I'll throw out there, and that comment is, Johan Cruyff said, "Quality without results is pointless. Results without quality is boring." And this is why he is one of the godfathers of the sport, because of the approach and the philosophy that we hear a lot nowadays. Everyone's got their own philosophy and their approach. But when it comes down to Johan Cruyff, the reason why his philosophy is justified so well, because it was passed on through generations, and total football came through not just results, but the manner in which they achieved results. The way in which he managed his players and decisions in games. That's another thing. You can have the best players in the world, but not make the major decisions on how to manage that. And I think that is the key when it comes down to great players, great teams, and great coaches. And we are reaching full time on the halftime show. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Remember, you can catch us on Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, 3 to 4. And also, we have just launched the YouTube live streaming. So head over to Pulse 95 Radio, and you can actually watch the show at your own convenience, at your own time. It gets edited from this amazing team here at Pulse 95. They fix it up for you guys. I hope you've had an incredible day. Have an incredible weekend. I'm going to see you probably on Saturday, 3 to 4, on the only place to be at 3, the halftime show on Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.